Next August, on the 9th, Australia is going to count its population. It's the 16th census, 14 months from now. But there's another reality. When I looked at that 14 months, I said, what's going to happen to India's population in those 14 months? And it just so happens that that's exactly the time when we add the population of Australia to India. By next August, when you will be counting the number of people here, we will have added as many people as Australia has. Now just think, if each one of them had to be provided with amenities and with a lifestyle which is like Australia. Just think in those next 14 months, forgetting all the people who are already there, just let's take the new Australian population which is getting added, and we had to add this infrastructure or this lifestyle to those people. What is that investment? Is the investment the total investment of Australia? Is the total number of schools, the total number of roads, the total number of buildings, factories, airports, the works? That has to go into India every 14 months, even if only the next generation has to live that lifestyle. And we even forget all the generations which are there. Now, that's where all these moral ethics and all these questions come in. Is it justified to let a country increase its population the way it wants to, and then argue per capita? Can we do that? Can India afford to do that? Is that fair? And it's interesting because you have to put this in the context of development. When you go back those 250 years of Industrial Revolution and see what happened to the population of Europe and England when Industrial Revolution first happened, and you had better medical facilities and better life being offered, the first thing which happens is that populations grow rapidly. And then they stabilize at some stage. It was a carbon strategy. It took a long time, and there was a major cost to it, a cost which historically, as Tim has spoken about, it's still with all of us. That historical space is filled. But is this inevitable? Have we learned anything from that? And I looked at just two of the states in India. We have the state in the south called Kerala, which has the highest female literacy in our country. 88% of women in Kerala are literate. The population rise, the lowest, 0.7% per year. Up north in Uttar Pradesh, the largest state in India, if it was separate, would be among the top 5 countries. 42% literacy, 1.77% growth. The connection between female literacy and population growth is known. It's documented. We all know it for the last so many years. And yet, something as simple as this, we cannot invest in. I'm not talking about we in the context of India. I'm talking about we in the context of the world. When we know that the population, perhaps, all projections say that we'll perhaps stabilize around 9 or 10 billion people, a third more than what we have today. Do we need to even go there? Or can we not put energy into things which are known? And is that climate change action at all? Do we just look upon carbon technology as climate change, or do we look upon female literacy rising as climate change action? And I want to therefore put the climate change debate in the context of development and sustainability. It cannot be just climate change. I often say in India we talk about the tiger. And we say save the tiger. But what we really mean is save an entire ecosystem. Because the minute you say save the tiger, you're saying save the deer. And when you say save the deer, you mean save the grass, and you save the ecosystem and save the water. And therefore, tiger is a symbol. It would be wrong to say that we are talking about tiger in isolation from all these other things. And I think similarly, it's completely wrong to think of climate change as anything more than the tiger of sustainability. That's what it is. It is, of course, the hook. It's, of course, what's caught the world's imagination. It's, of course, the big thing which we all talk about. But let's not forget that it cannot be done in isolation. And it's connected to those women who are growing up today in India, in several parts of the world, who are not getting a decent school and not getting education. And those are the type of links. But is it only a question of population? And I think we had Peter talk about the unequal footprint. He used another word for it. And the footprint, broadly measuring how much acres you need to be able to live the lifestyle you have. India's footprint is something like 1.2 hectares, maybe 1.5 hectares is all we have. If you did a world calculation and took all the areas which we had and divided it by the number of people, you'll probably say something around 2.2, 2.3 is what we can afford. But because we should perhaps live something for the 30, 40 million other species on this world, maybe we should keep it down to 2 and give the 0.2 for every other type of living form. Okay? But even at 2, India still has a way to go up. But then you look at the US and you have 9.5 touching 10. There's a way to come down there. That lifestyle, if we were to just simply put on to the people of India, it would create a disaster. It's a simple mathematics, a simple multiplication to be done. It is estimated that today we consume something like 1 1/3 planet's worth. This is what we consume. But if we just go on like this, by 2050, we'll probably need 4 planets. And this, as all of us know, is not possible. So the question of whether we are going to solve the climate problem or not, I don't think is even a question. I think people are going to solve it. The question is, are we going to solve it the hard way by first completely destroying everything we have, fighting over it, or are we going to do it in some ethical, moral fashion, in a planned way, so that we can arrive there? The fact that we will be there is unquestioned. The world planet will be there, humans will be there. However much they suffer, they will still be there. But we can do it in ways which are morally right and ethically correct. In 1928, long time ago, Mahatma Gandhi was talking to an industrialist in India. And he was talking about the development path. And he said, God forbid that India should ever take to industrialization after the manner of the West. If an entire nation of 300 million, that was our population then, if an entire nation of 300 million took to similar economic exploitation, it would strip the world bare like locusts. The question, he didn't use words like footprint in those days, but it was very obvious to him that the direction we needed to take was going to be different and had to be different if we are citizens of this world who are responsible and not only thinking that we want what everyone else wants. And we need to think differently. I sometimes look at a graph which says that you have developed countries which are not sustainable, and you have countries which are not developed but are sustainable. And while the developed countries are moving towards sustainability, most of the developing world is in fact just imitating. Most of what we do in India, you forget India of the rural, you forget the romanticized India, but you take India of Mumbai or Delhi, and you say, hey, doesn't this look like Sydney or Melbourne? Aren't they trying to do what we did? Are they learning from us or are they copying us? What is happening? And unfortunately, most of what is happening is imitative. And unless we leapfrog, we don't follow that path, but we go to a path which other countries are heading towards. We say, let's meet together in 2050, but we are not behind you on the road which you have taken. Till we do that, we are going to go into the same pitfalls. And unfortunately, a lot of what China and India are doing is, in fact, that. Not all of it, but a lot is. The United Nations Environment Program, 2 years ago, had a campaign and for World Environment Day. It was called CO2, Kick the Habit. CO2, Kick the Habit. And I come from an institution which works with schools and works with education. And we were given this slogan. And me and my colleagues looked at it and we said, how do we go to a village which has not got its first electricity connection and put up a sign which says CO2, kick the habit? Huh? It was just one of those completely ill-conceived international program. And then we were sitting there and one of my colleagues took the K out of the kick and put a P there and said, let's put pick right. So we changed the campaign. We said CO2, pick right. And what we meant was, let us make the right development choices. It's not a question of, for us, it's not kick the habit. It's picking the right choice. Can we take the population of India and can we tell them that please look at the West, please look at everyone who has developed before you, but don't imitate. Ask them what they did that they would not do if they were to do it a second time, and what have we learned from it and what can we do differently? And it's that ability which is extremely difficult. And as someone in education, I realize how powerful imitation is and how much our advertising world, which spells trillions of dollars, in fact makes you do exactly those things which every other logic in you tells you is wrong. But it suddenly tells you that the jeans I wore last year, and which are designed to last for 20 years or so, but next year I can't wear them because they're now completely out of fashion. And it tells me to consume in strange ways. And while we think that we are living in free countries and we make free choices, in fact, we'll be surprised how few free choices we make. We think we make free choices, but we in fact don't. We are so programmed and so governed by this. And it was this emphasis on education which came about because the Indian Constitution embedded in it that it was the duty of every citizen to look after their environment. And this was something which sort of lay in that constitution for a while. Nobody really thought that it was more than rhetoric, till someone took it to court and saying, how can every citizen of India look after the environment if you don't teach them about sustainability and environment? And shouldn't it be compulsory? And in a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court said that there shall be no formal program of learning in India, whether it's kindergarten or upper level, tertiary level, which will not have environment education in it. And as a result now, over the last few years, every program, you cannot have, it might not be very good programs, because people are learning it. And our center is helping in create very good material. And currently, we are reaching out to something like 160,000 schools in the country with an environmental program. It will go up to 200,000 schools next year. And all of them learning about sustainability and learning how to decrease the footprint of their school or their neighborhood or their village. All of them will do plantation. And with GPS technology, we are trying to monitor what each school is doing. So there'll be these 200,000 schools, you will upload it and you will see whether plantation is in fact happening or not. The children will write about ground truths, what's happening, and feed it back. And that's we hope, is creating a new generation. But India's stand internationally on carbon, where does it stand in all this discussion? And it's interesting. Peter was asking me downstairs what stand, and India is a very ambiguous stand. We don't sign the non-proliferation treaty. And we don't sign it because we feel that our place in the world is different from what our economics tells us. We feel that as a proud nation, we cannot sign something which says that we are a nuclear facility in our hands is more dangerous than a nuclear facility in the hands of the US. When President Bush comes and tells us that, yes, it's true that I have so many nuclear weapons, but you can't have any, that is something we felt that we will do it, but we will do it voluntarily. We won't do it because you tell us, because we don't agree with who you are, or you have no moral right to tell us. And that same thing goes here in the carbon thing, that we feel that when we have 1.2 is our footprint, ecological footprint, or 1 ton is our carbon footprint, what we are saying is that let us internally, somewhat like what Tim said, in a patriotic fashion, in a fashion where we consider that what we should define our own goals, as good patriotic world citizens, let us reduce that footprint. And India has taken on 8 missions. There are 8 missions taken on to tackle climate change. Solar energy, enhanced energy efficiency, sustainable habitats, conserving water, a special one looking at the Himalayan ecosystem, sustainable agriculture, and a strategic knowledge platform. And the last one, which is very important, is called the Green India Mission, a major strategy to spend something like $10 billion on greening. And I was just noticing it's a 10-10-10. I don't know how these 20-20s and 10s come around, but it's 10 million hectares over 10 years. And you basically have something like $100 a year per hectare. It's 24 million acres, if we are more familiar with that. 1 acre for every person in Australia, because that's the population here. And we are doing a consultation. While I talk, for instance, one of the things we are doing is, this is the Green India Mission paper. This is India's strategy. It's out today. And a few hours ago in India, the first consultation started. People can give in comments in this. They can write in comments in the column. And through wide consultation, we are trying to get people involved in how India should green itself. But the point here is that these strategies are happening through an internal process. And it does not mean that our commitment is any less, but it still fights shy of signing something externally in company of those it feels don't deserve us to sign it with. International agreements are several on this whole ethics thing. And UNESCO, for instance, last year decided that there should be a declaration of the ethical principles in relation to climate change. But several principles have already got accepted. And Peter mentioned some of them. And India is strongly endorsing those. Some of those are like the common but differentiated responsibility is one of those principles which have evolved, which means that while it's a common problem, the responsibility to deal with it is not the same to everyone. You have to look at the historical dimension, as it's not Peter's 3 paradigms. It's not this or this or this. We usually put an and in one of them. You have to look at historical, you have to look at per capita now, and you have to look at justice from the point of view of who has resources to do this. We look at the precautionary principle. We look at present and future generations. We are very clear that what is required is a certain amount of committed funds which will have to go, but it is in the mode of partnership. India, I can assure you, might not do the best PR, but it is heavily committed to really making a difference in this one. We have per capita emissions is very much in our mind. We are trying to get every person who goes to school now to do something about it. It's not just environmental education, but environmental education going into action. Just like you have the footprint, we have been working on a concept of a handprint. We can do things, footprint is something which we can reduce up to a point, but handprint is something which goes with our imagination. We can do a lot of positive things in this globe. It's a movement which we want to see happen in Australia, we want to see happening in India, we want to see it happening all over the world. There is a program now in South Africa, in Canada, which is looking at this. And can people be, I just want to end with this, one often wonders that can people acting separately still do things right? Tim took us to a restaurant this afternoon, which is a community restaurant, where there is no price list. And you're supposed to give what you thought was fair. And I said, Tim, surely this person will go bankrupt if that's the way you run a restaurant. And he said, no, you'll be surprised how in Melbourne we can run a restaurant without a price list, without someone giving you a bill, and people contributing what they thought was fair, and it is fair. And I think that spirit needs to be harnessed. We need to grow that. We bureaucrats can't do that. It is something which, there's something inherent in people who are not all bad, where people will contribute. And I think that's the spirit which needs to be harnessed. And I'm very glad to be here today at the Deakin Lecture. I can see the type of vibrancy here and the type of reception which we all have. And thank you very much.